just sense enough to put in Felton at the left half.
Is Felton good, Father?
Good, my dear Nell. He's the greatest broken field runner since Willie Heston of Michigan.
Oh.
Welcome to the Health and Wellness Show in Bayonne. I'm Dr. Mike Acanfora, and I'm your host. And today I am really excited to have Felecia Bell-Rutkowski with us. Felecia is the proprietor of Walk-In Health, and it's great to see you. How are you?
Thank you. I'm well.
So please tell us, for those who don't know you, about your journey as to how you got here.
Well, many years ago, I was very, very sick. I had irritable bowel syndrome that was not being helped by the established medical model at the time. And that galvanized me to seek out better answers for why my body was expressing these symptoms. And it led me to a holistic nutritionist. And I was put on a program which, for the most part, solved most of my complaints. It wasn't until I was introduced later to nutrition response testing that it was completely eradicated. And that's so that's how I got to nutrition response testing.
Wow, that's fascinating. Give us a little bit of background as to what a holistic nutritionist does compared to, say, a dietitian.
Well, the distinction has to do with what's used to get the body well.
Okay.
In holistic nutrition, we don't consider Jell-O to be food.
Okay.
Yet, I've seen in certain, I'm not attacking dietitians by any means, but you can't give somebody with Crohn's disease Jell-O and white flour. We use food to help the body heal.
Wow.
Not just identify non-roughage related diets.
Fascinating. So you actually have a prop for us today.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
I love this. So talk to me about what we have up here and explain in great detail what we're looking at.
Okay. These are two triangles. The first triangle is the triangle we use in practice nutritionally to help people understand how disease processes happen in the body.
Okay.
And this one is a dear friend of mine who is a chiropractor said that she uses this one and they really dovetail beautifully, and I wanted to illustrate the why nutrition and chiropractic care dovetail, how they go together.
Interesting. So let's talk about the first one on the
Okay.
on my right-hand side.
All right. So say, for instance, someone comes to see me. They've been diagnosed with a disease condition of the tissue, the body.
Sure.
And they want to know, well, how did this happen to me? And this really is where disease begins. A nutrient deficiency
Okay.
will lead to an organ dysfunction. An organ dysfunction will lead to the disease state. So that's that triangle.
Sure.
Now, you can have a chemical stress
Okay.
in the organ dysfunction.
Sure.
That's how they go together.
Okay.
Physical stress is alleviated through a chiropractic adjustment.
Sure. Absolutely.
You can have chemical stress in an organ where a person would get relief from a chiropractic adjustment. They may not hold that adjustment because this has to be addressed.
Correct.
Because it's still contributing to the
Sure.
organ dysfunction,
Sure.
which started back from the nutrient deficiency.
Absolutely. And talk a little bit about the emotional aspect of that as well.
Well, you can, for example, the body's mineral balances are the body's tranquilizers,
Sure.
physiologic tranquilizers. So again, with a nutrient deficiency, you could see emotional stress.
Sure.
Enough of that would contribute to physical stress.
Correct.
And again, a person would get some relief chiropractically, but it's not sustained relief.
They're not going to hold their adjustment, quote
They're not-
unquote, hold.
Exactly, quote unquote
Yep.
hold.
Yep. So the fascinating thing about this is it all starts with this nutrient
Deficiency.
Yes. So talk about
Nutrition.
that. Yeah, talk about the nutrition and nutrient deficiencies that you see in clinical practice.
Well, so many people come in and they're eating foods that are actually stealing other nutrients from their bodies,
Such as?
i.e. sugars. Sugars will displace minerals in the tissue.
Wow.
And enough sugars in the body is going to experience some type of breakdown.
Okay. So ring dings and ho-hos aren't good for us?
No, unfortunately.
Oh, well, we'll have to eliminate those from the diet.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about these nutrient deficiencies. For example, my thought was like with a chemical stress, if somebody drank a lot of beer all the time, that would cause problems with the liver.
Exactly, that's a great one. Okay, so here we're dealing with liver.
Sure.
Now, you've got people that drink a lot of beer that don't have problems with the liver.
Right.
Now, why is that? Why is that some people can drink a lot of beer and other alcoholic beverages and not have a problem with this organ?
Okay.
It has to do with what is the terrain of the liver. Is the
Fascinating.
liver performing its function?
Right.
My practice is a functional nutritional practice. So
Sure.
we're looking at what is preventing this organ from functioning.
Right.
So we're looking at nutrient deficiencies. We're looking at chemical stressors.
Sure.
And a chemical stressor would also cause an organ dysfunction.
Sure. So this is what fascinates me about when we have the opportunity to sit and chat about these things is it's the same reason why sometimes some smokers don't get lung cancer.
Exactly.
It's the terrain.
It's the terrain.
It's the terrain. So we were taught that who was it? Was it Pasteur who said it's on his deathbed? It's not the organism; it's the terrain, essentially.
Absolutely.
And we still go with Pasteur's theories, but the reality is it's terrain, and we've got to build that terrain up to break this cycle. and by providing it, providing the body the proper nutrients.
Because we chase symptoms. We're chasing diseases.
Right.
The disease is there because the terrain is not sufficient to prevent
Right.
the assault from the pathogen, the chemical. If the terrain is, if the immune system, let's use a better analogy with the immune system.
Sure.
If the immune system is producing its function, which is to immunologically protect you against disease processes,
sure,
then you're able to ward off the disease.
Sure. Sure. Another one that popped into my mind, and a very common one, get away from like liver disease and cirrhosis, but something like eczema. Eczema is treated most times allopathically outside in, as opposed to inside out.
Exactly. Cortisone shots, which are also damaging to the liver.
Right.
Creams. And no one ever addresses, well, why is the body expressing itself this way? What is the body trying to do?
Right.
And so those are the questions that I look to answer in practice.
Correct. You get to the root cause of the problem.
Yeah.
Why is the body reacting this way? There is a reason. It's doing detective work where you've got to dial down as to the exact cause of that. And by putting a cream on it, it may get rid of it temporarily on the surface, but it's still within the body, circulating readily.
Yeah, it's a suppressive answer to something that is increasingly becoming systemic.
Yes.
That has to do with diet. It has to do with lifestyle.
Sure.
There was a conversation a while ago with regard to the genetic answer with regard to disease.
Sure.
And you've got a movement that really trumps a lot of that has to do with biogenetics.
Sure.
What are you doing to the terrain that is changing its expression?
That's brilliant. Absolutely. Talk a little bit more about that, because it is looked upon as I have, my mother and father have this, or my mother and grandmother had this, so therefore I'm predisposed to that. Talk about with the epigenetics of that.
Well, first you have to answer the question of what are you doing that your mother and your grandmother or grandfather did. So we're looking at habits, environment, lifestyle.
Sure.
So that's the first analysis. And then we get into habits of food intake, which predispose the tissue for a certain expression.
Correct.
Once you address those paths, then you begin the aha of let's stop, let's remove this food, let's remove this food, and let's see what happens to the tissue. Let's also identify what's in the cell that shouldn't be in the cell, i.e. a chemical stress, an environmental stress, a heavy metal, and once you remove that from the cell, then you're able then to normalize just physiologic cellular function.
Sure. And a stress can be anything basically that's not supposed to be there within the body, whether it's a parasite or a fungus or a bacterial or viral. It could be any of those that just the body recognizes as foreign.
It could be food dye.
It can be food dye as well, but it can also be food as well that the body recognizes as foreign because of the intestinal linings not being healthy, going back to a nutritional deficiency of healthy bacteria.
And also you have the issue of genetically modified organisms.
Yes.
And so the structure of the food has changed to something that the body doesn't recognize as natural.
Right.
And so the body is working hard to break down something that some genetically modified organisms have pests that have been programmed into the DNA of the plant. And so you have plants that are grown to repel pests that we are now ingesting.
Correct.
And so, because people always ask me, do I have to eat organic? Well, there's a real strong argument to support why organic is better.
Right.
And it's again, it's a biochemical terrain issue with regard to one person's capacity to homeostatically handle certain stressors versus another person's.
That's why, you know, you can have a child that falls down and hurts themselves and they're better in 10 minutes, and you get a senior citizen that falls and it's life-threatening because of the terrain.
Right.
You know, the child's body has not had very few insults to it, where the adult has had a lifetime buildup of all of this, and it's a downward spiral from there.
And then you add to this drug residue.
Sure.
Again, another chemical stressor. And you've got people that are taking in drugs and their bodies aren't eliminating the waste from those drugs.
Right.
And again, that's building up here.
Right.
And people wonder why they don't get well, because you've had a lifetime of the byproduct of this drug and of this drug and of this drug, and your eliminative channels are compromised. You're not going to the bathroom like you should, urination. So some of these excretory factors are not being supported.
That is one of the reasons when we do lectures in our office, which we do frequently, is we tell people you really need to get a water filter for your house, especially for the shower, because those prescription and non-prescription medications pass through your body, and guess what? They're finding in the water supply birth control residue. They're finding, it's horrifying. So you really need to eliminate as much of the toxin overload that our body is being compromised by.
Sure, absolutely. Excessive chlorine.
Chlorine is a big one.
Yeah.
When I was down in school in Georgia, you could not get good pizza or bread because the chlorine content was so high, and they couldn't get the bread to rise. It was really, not that I eat bread now, but it was something back then that we really looked forward to.
Yeah. It's just like the epidemic of metabolic syndrome can be tied to replacing bromide in baking with it was replaced with, I can't think of what it was replaced with, but it was replaced with something that that created this, you weren't able to break down the food as easily as you were before.
So they took a naturally occurring element, bromide, and replaced it with something probably synthetic that the body can't recognize, and is in all likelihood storing in the adipose tissue in the body.
Yep, and the body's not breaking down the byproduct of the bread.
The byproduct of the bread, and that's again, that's horrifying. Talk a little bit more about what you see in your clinical practice. What is it that you see with people walking in the door, and what do you do?
Well, I see most people come in because they put on a few pounds.
Okay.
Or their energy, they don't understand why they're exercising, but they're not recovering like they used to. They're sluggish, they're not sleeping, their appetite has increased, and they're cutting back on food, yet they're still putting on weight. Those are some of the more common things.
More common things.
Digestive complaints, bloating.
Talk a little bit more in depth about what are some of the things that you've seen come across your path that people would say, well, that's hard for me to believe that nutrition can help? Some of the more in-depth things that you've seen.
Young boy recently, he had a condition where there was blood in his urine for 2 years. And he wasn't getting helped, and he went from specialist to specialist, and no one could identify what was causing it.
Okay.
And he was very athletic, and every time he would, play sports, he'd experience this. And we were able to get to cause and completely stop this phenomena. Right. And now he's playing sports, and he's doing great. His energy is great. His muscle integrity is,
wow.
It's remarkable.
Yep. And talk about some of the more difficult cases that you've had.
The most difficult have to do with multiple immune challenges.
Sure.
With a degeneration of tissue in organs.
Okay.
Because you've got multiple immune challenges. You may have a heavy metal toxicity. Oftentimes you do, and then you've got degeneration. And so we've got to rely on the body directing us regarding what to address first.
Fascinating. Tell the viewers. We talked about nutrition response testing. Tell them a little bit about your background and how you got to this point with regards to nutrition response testing. So you decided to become a nutritionist, and what did you do? Because there are some people that are running around that claim they're nutritionist, or they work with people, but they have no background in this.
Well, I went to school. I got a master's in science. I went through advanced clinical training, which was a very challenging program. I actually went through it twice. I was invited back, and then I helped guest teach through the program. And so I'm considered a clinical master of nutrition response testing. And the thing that I like about nutrition response testing, it gives you the tools by which to address where the problems are in the body with pinpoint accuracy.
Wow.
And the sequence of how they should be addressed in what order.
So that's fascinating, and it all goes back to nutrient deficiency.
It all goes back to nutrient deficiencies. We are horribly deficient in our culture because the soils have been decimated. You're not seeing the same nutrient capacity in a tomato that was once measured from 1950.
Right. So and in all likelihood, that tomato is genetically modified as well.
And now it's genetically modified as well.
And unless, of course, it cannot be genetically modified and labeled organic.
Exactly.
Or if you get seeds and you grow your own garden, you know that obviously if your seed is hybridized, it's in all likelihood genetically modified.
Yeah.
So you have to look for heirloom or organic seeds.
Right. And then make the soil as nutrient dense as possible.
Sure.
Because that's what's going to support the plant that grows from it.
Absolutely. With the kids, we've had a garden for the last 5 years, and they've gotten more involved in it every year, and they look forward to weeding, believe it or not. They look forward to it, and also getting the compost out there and the topsoil, which is all organic. And they actually look forward to doing that, and then doing the planting and helping with the watering. And that's something that our society has gotten away from completely.
Yeah.
And they get to see it from this big or even seedlings to where they're going out in the morning and picking strawberries, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's a nice family activity to do.
Yeah.
To just hit on a little more, explain to people what GMO, or genetically modified, is again, because it's so important, and get into a little bit of why it's important.
Well, people should be concerned because you've got companies that want to control the seeds. And if you've got a company that wants to control the seeds that are being put into the ground, which will in effect control the farming of those seeds, they're controlling the food chain.
Right.
They want to, it inhibits little farmers. Genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, are just that. They're genetically modified seeds, and part of the genetic modification is putting the pest of the seed in the seed so that you're growing an ear of corn that is repulsive